Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to look at a 1-minute video which will set the tone for what will happen hereafter, please. Both of the screens.
Now, the F.W. de Klerk Foundation, we've become like a family. So many years, the same people. In 2010, we started giving the Goodwill Award. The award recognizes individuals, organizations that have exceptional contributions made to promoting goodwill, reconciliation, and unity among South Africans. The 2025 award is presented posthumously to Dr. Franklin Sonn in recognition of his lifelong service to South Africa and his outstanding contribution to an amazing approach to many spheres of society, from reconciliation and constitutional democracy. We in the foundation, we were talking about him, how much we wanted to award him that award, and then he passed away. So we arrived at the funeral, dumb spell, you know, because you were in our hearts. Dr. Son, he had a brave leadership, moral authority, and unwavering commitment to the common good were evident across education, business, diplomacy, and public life. He embodied the values of unity, transformation, and principled leadership that lie at the heart of this award. Through his life's work, Dr. Son helped shape more than a just an inclusive society in South Africa, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire. It is with deep respect and gratitude that the F.W. de Klerk Foundation honors his memory. Oh, the brother is there. Hello, sorry. If I may say something from my personal life, I met Dr. Son in 1993 in Oslo. I was waiting for the lift to come in the hotel. I went into the lift and there he was. I didn't know him, but he mesmerized me. What a wonderful, charismatic human being. Warm, kind, learned. He had it all. And you, my dear Joan, I got to know, you were always by his side in your elegant pace, always there in your elegant pace. Crispin, Heather, Anna, I really feel for you being here, but he's here. So please, may we present you this award from the bottom of our hearts.
Chairperson of the F.W. de Klerk Foundation, Elita. De Klerk, thank you very much for this opportunity, for the way you've received our family and for the support that you've offered us through our time of bereavement, your attendance at the funeral, but your messages to our family. We are really deeply grateful for your effort, your humanity and your care. Kutsia, baie dankie vir die manier hoe jy die program lei. To the Honourable Minister Schlabisa, Auditor General Maluleke, Dr. Ruben Richards, who I've had the privilege of knowing for a very long time, and if you'll allow me also a good friend, Moletsi Mbeki. Very nice to see you here. To all the members of the Diplomatic Corps, thank you for being present at this very special event for our family. Present here today to receive this award is my mother, Joan, my sister, Heather, my wife, Lisa, and my father's brother, Julian. We are honored and delighted to accept this award and recognition on behalf of our father, who passed away on the 15th of November and whose death has left a huge hole in our lives. We are grateful that you've decided to award our father with this honor and thankful for the support the foundation has bestowed on us during our time of grief. Franklin's son would have been very proud to have received this award today, and no doubt would have used this platform to share his thoughts and feelings about the times we find ourselves in today. Our father's views of President de Klerk and the work he did in his life to make South Africa a better place for all its people and a better global citizen is well documented in our father's own biography, which was published last year. So thankfully, I don't have to guess or speculate about his views in this regard. I can refer to his book, From Forsberg to Washington, Memoirs of a Peace Broker. In his book, our father acknowledges the steps President de Klerk took to abolish apartheid on the 2nd of February 1990. Yesterday, 36 years ago. It is tragic that 36 years later, we are still having this conversation. He goes on to acknowledge President de Klerk and President Mandela as peacemakers among skeptical colleagues and comrades on both sides of the peace table. On page 62 of his book, he describes his time as ambassador to Washington, D.C., and recalls the unparalleled interest and appeal President de Klerk had in the United States of America as the U.S. still struggles with the establishment of a non-racial inclusive society where black and white accept each other as equals at all levels with an equal right to existence. He goes on to write, "I was overwhelmed and proud to see the admiration de Klerk commanded. Given the socio-political dynamics, the Americans were eager to learn about the unprecedented behavior of a leader who had timeously realized that democracy must be given a chance and who voluntarily gave up his position of power." In regular conversations with my father, and those who knew him, you didn't have to guess what he was thinking. He was ready to tell you. And he was ready to tell you over and over so that you get it. And so in regular conversation with my father, I also remember how he privately and publicly acknowledged something that is forgotten about President de Klerk, that he voluntarily gave up nuclear weapons. President de Klerk's book, The Last Trek, A New Beginning, he also reflects on his relationship with my father, which validates some of the positions we hold. My reflection on the passage in his book is not to heap cheap praise on President de Klerk, Mrs. de Klerk, or the foundation, and the admirable work you do, but rather to make a broader point. Both President de Klerk and our father were peacemakers who for a period of time occupied different sides of the peace table. Rather than focus on which side of the table fate, history, or divine intervention placed them, the emphasis for me falls on the fact that there was a peace table created by men and women who recognized that there was an illness that afflicted South African society as a whole and required brave and visionary leadership to find a peaceful solution. One of our father's favorite quotes was, "When the first shot is fired, negotiations begin." I've come to learn that this quote is not attributed to one person, but has become a well-accepted military and diplomatic principle, acknowledging that conflict and peace negotiations frequently run parallel to each other. It is hard to believe that those who make war and malign their foes publicly aren't promoting parallel discussions to bring about a negotiated outcome. It does prompt me to ask the question, when the leaders are fighting, who is talking peace? This also provides me with a perfect platform and segue into communicating what I believe our Father would be saying here today, had he been here accepting the Lord himself. He was a great believer in dialogue and open and clear communication, and saw himself as a peacemaker who frequently attracted the wrath of many in the progressive movements for speaking to the enemy. Given this, I suspect that there would have been two themes he would have wanted me to focus on today. Theme one, being a deep believing and spiritual person, would have been from Proverbs 29, verse 18. And my sister and I can recite this at 3 o'clock in the morning if you wake us up. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keeps the law, happy is he. He was deeply perplexed by the absence of a vivid vision that kept our nation united and focused on our common purpose. The Afrikaans Bible, I think, says it better, at least for me. In die afwesigheid van 'n openbaring is die volk bandeloos. Bandeloos. Our Father was perturbed by the absence of this unifying and inspiring vision that requires of us to be the best for our neighbor and collectively for the nation that Mandela, de Klerk, and others worked so hard to make possible. Franklin Sonn was deeply disturbed by the erosion of this vision and the systematic replacement by a racial nationalism intent on establishing a new national order, mimicking the emerging new global order, based on an ethos where the wealthiest survives at the expense of the rest, where history and truth no longer matters, where common courtesy and care is unfashionable, and where we have lost sight of our diversity as a strength. Tragically, a society has emerged which has left the Rainbow Nation floundering, creating a fertile bed for opportunistic, self-serving forces, of which we've heard some today, on both the right and the left of centrist politics. With the polarization of politics to the extreme and dysfunctional edges of the political spectrum, we seem to have become disjointed from the vision of a peaceful nation, inclusive in its nature and commitment to the eradication of poverty. The second theme I think our Father would have focused on, and would certainly have wanted me to focus on, would be what I referred to earlier. When the first shot is fired, peace negotiations begin. I think it is fair to say that the world is in a state of low-intensity war. Maybe you'll disagree with me that it's not so low intensity, which has not spared South Africa. Right-wing movements have organized themselves along principles of exclusivity and deliberate racial bias, strongly resembling the era President de Klerk worked hard to move us away from. It helps us little to try to give this movement a name without understanding its genesis. So let's not give the patient a name, but rather understand her ailment, and in this case, the affliction is the vilification of white people by virtue of race and history. And as white South Africans in particular feel alienated the same way black South Africans felt for centuries, they tragically are actively organizing themselves according to their own beliefs, values, and norms. The absence of a functioning, inclusive, and forward-looking state provides them with ample space and justification for this to be seen as an appropriate response. I challenge you to sit in the lounge of an airport, to sit in the sauna of a gym, and listening to young men talking. It doesn't resemble the country that we had once imagined we could be. Left-leaning organizations, initially and notionally committed to a more inclusive society, has fallen prey to the scarcity mentality that has enabled its greed and disenabled its altruistic ambitions. There is too little to go around. It's too much effort to grow the pie. So I need to position myself as close to the trough as possible at all costs. That appears to be the popular slogan. And we've heard that manifest at local government level today. I'm reminded by my father, when we were younger, gave us cartoon books, I think to encourage us to read. So we had, I'm reminded about a cartoon from Punch from 1878. And the narration says, "I'm not hungry, but thank goodness I'm greedy." It seems to be becoming a popular slogan. The law of actions and equal opposite reactions creates the perfect deviation for devious men, and tragically, it's mostly men, who direct us away from the founding principles of our Constitution. Here I specifically reference the preamble to the Constitution and Chapter 1. So presumptuously, I'll highlight a piece of it, and it's presumptuous because I know it's something that the Foundation deals with and knows very well. For those of you who don't know, let me remind you what it says. The Republic of South Africa is one sovereign democratic state founded on the following values: human dignity, the achievement of equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms, non-racialism and non-sexism, supremacy of the Constitution and the rule of law, universal adult suffrage, a national common voters' roll, regular elections, and a multi-party system of democratic government to ensure accountability, responsiveness, and openness. The time tragically again calls for courageous leadership, where courage is defined by our willingness to imagine. And my sister keeps reminding me, courage requires us to imagine again. Is defined by a willingness to imagine, to reclaim the dream of an inclusive society based on common values of care and respect. We must again develop the capability to execute on this dream by mobilizing the best intentions of most South Africans into action and deeds that give content to this dream. We learn from history that we don't learn from history. And again, we learn that no society can be sustainable and flourish if all its component parts are not at the table, committed and vested in its success. It is with gratitude that we accept this award bestowed on our late father, and with humility and urgency that we petition the F.W. de Klerk Foundation to continue the work you are doing to bring South Africa back to the center again, to set the table for peace, create an environment for the contestation of ideas that moves the entire society forward, to build a system where the best person for the job of serving is appointed, where the playing field is delineated by the provisions and prescripts of the Constitution, and where decency and care are restored as an essential feature of South African citizenry. This request we make knowing full well that it is consistent with the beliefs and values of the Foundation, and in the knowledge that Franklin Abrahamson would expect that we collectively continue his work, President de Klerk's work, President Mandela's work, in finding solutions for our fractured society through honest dialogue. I'd like to add that today was extremely illuminating, seeing what is possible in our country. And as encouraged as we all are, we've spent a fair amount talking about the what. I do encourage and would like to enroll myself in the project of working with the Foundation of figuring out the how. How do we enable this? And if there's one legacy I'd like to associate with this award, it's where we bravely start imagining how we bring about the what that you've spoken about. Thank you again for listening, and thank you very much for this award.